Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady. Today we have 3 more stories, and in this episode, you'll see first the story of a guy who was mistaken for a park employee, then the story of a Karen who had bad luck with the police, and our third story, another Karen who tried to pretend to be the wife of a hotel owner. So, I hope you're ready. Let's get started. I'm just here for Pickle. I take my dog to the dog park, shocking I'm sure, every day because he has a whole lot of energy, and if he doesn't get a solid 30 to 45 minutes of social running with his dog buds, it's going to make bedtime a real problem for the humans of the house. That said, in addition to myself, there are lots of regulars, and we all chat and play with each other's dogs. It's a nice setup, and everybody is super respectful of the space and the other people and the dogs for the most part. It's a park district property, and there's a big pile of broken cinder blocks in the front corner, well out of the way and not posing any obvious hazards. I was camped out on top of one of the picnic tables at the other end of the park because you should never ever sit on the benches that are in leg lifting range. It's a mistake you'll only make once. When this couple in their mid to late 30s came ambling over and started chatting with me about my dog, Pickle. As in Pickle Rick, because he's a jerk and thinks he's smarter than everyone and doesn't care how inconvenient his brilliant ideas may be, and pointing out their furball of indeterminate origin. Seems like a friendly couple, and they're new to our park, so I'm happy to chat about other local parks and other nearby pet-friendly trails, because some are not so pet-friendly and the fines are stupid if you get caught. Apparently being semi-knowledgeable about places to go in my own neighborhood means I work for the park district, because they started asking me about the cinder blocks and if they're allowed to take them because they're broken anyway. Me. I don't work here, and I don't own those blocks. You could probably call the park district and ask someone there. You don't work here? No, I'm here with Pickle. Well, can we take the broken blocks? Not my call. Well, then who can we talk to? The park district is my best guess. What's their number? I have no earthly idea. Well, that's weird. Oh, do you normally encounter people that can quote phone numbers off like yellowpages.com? Them. Finally seeing the light. You don't work for the park? Me. Correct. Them. Shuffling away and repeating this exact conversation with 5 other regulars before throwing their hands up and being angry that nobody works there. What kind of dog park has staff? It's not like a public pool with lifeguards. And our second story. Lady tried to take me away from my parents to help her find her phone. Backstory. This happened when I was about 14 years old in Mexico with my parents and sister. Now I'm very small and skinny, so my body says I'm a 12-year-old. My face, however, is very mature looking when I wear makeup, so I guess that was the reason they made the mistake. All the other workers in the store were wearing normal clothes, so there wasn't really a way of telling who the workers were and who wasn't. This was an American resort with American staff. Start. So I was in a big store in the resort with my parents that would be easy to get lost in. My parents were busy looking at things to buy while I just stood texting on my phone. We were out shopping that day, so I had to put makeup on instead of usually not wearing some because I felt bored. So everything's fine until this American woman taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me." I turn around in confusion. The woman looks rough AF, like she just woke up from sleeping in the trash with a Karen haircut like she did it herself. There were split ends everywhere. She says, "Hi, my son lost his phone in the store. Do you think you could look around for it?" I say, "Oh, sorry, I don't work here." My Scottish accent doesn't help the gear turn in her head that I wasn't American like the rest of the staff. She goes, "Yeah, you do. I saw you walking around with those customers over there." She points to my parents, who I was walking around with, until she tapped my shoulder. They've now walked to the next aisle, and I say, "Those are my parents." I turn around, back to my phone, and walk off. She then grabs me by the wrist so tight it left a big red mark and says, "Oh, don't you dare walk away from me. I'll call the manager and you'll be fired and deported from wherever you came from." I live in Scotland, in the UK. A very successful country. I know Taekwondo, so I managed to get her hands off my wrist and create some space between us. She starts yelling on the floor like she's in pain while her 5-year-old son is just standing there watching her. My parents haven't yet realized that I'm gone and have gone to pay for their items. The woman at the till looked over at the stall and saw me standing there while a woman was crying in pain because I took her hands off my wrist, which was red from when she grabbed it. The woman at the till came running over to see what happened. My parents also looked over and saw me and came running over. I told my parents what had happened while the woman proceeded to scream and roll on the floor with the cashiers trying to help her up. My dad was not a happy camper after that. He stopped the woman rolling on the floor, picked her right up and said, "Don't you dare touch my daughter again." Then he stopped grabbing her and walked off with me and my mom while the woman began to scream at my dad for assaulting her by picking her up from the ground. Later that day in our hotel room, we got a knock at the door from security and the woman standing there with a firm grin on her face. The policemen had asked what happened, and we started giving our side of the story, and the woman went wild. She started screaming again, and when the security guy asked her to calm down, she grabbed his arm and tried to drag him out of our hotel room, from which he was not happy about, and put her in a restraining position and cuffed her. He asked us if we wanted to press charges with the police, with the woman grabbing me and everything. I said no. I didn't want to ruin this woman's holiday, especially if she had a 5-year-old kid. And our third story. Nice try, Karen, but you're not my mother. Where this story takes place is actually the only motel, room access from exterior of building, my parents have managed thus far. It's pretty old, and a lot of things have to be manually done or switched on or off. So it was a Friday, it was early evening. I headed down to the opposite side of the hotel to turn on the exterior lights, the electronic sign, parking lot lights, etc. The motel didn't have all doors with electronic locks, so the door I had to get through was actually lock and key. So I'm walking down past all the rooms when a door behind me opens. I keep walking, barely throwing a glance over my shoulder. I eventually make it towards the end and am about to pull out the key when I hear rapid footsteps. I turn around and stop another wild Karen in her tracks. All right, she didn't really look like a Karen, but I had been in the lobby when she checked in, and yeah, no doubt about it. For a second, she actually hesitates to talk, almost fooling me into thinking, oh, great spaghetti monster, was I wrong about her? Ha, no. Karen begins to berate me for not being behind the desk and getting her food. What the hell? It's a motel. Where does she think she is? La expensive hotel? I tell her, in a mocking way, since I honestly give 0 Fs about what she thought, oh sure, let me just snap my fingers and conjure food from the non-existent kitchen, Your Highness. She didn't like that. I was sure she'd start yelling at me for mocking her, but nope. You're a witch. Once more I ask, what? This just took a turn that made me long for a big stick to smack her upside the head with, because something was obviously just rolling around up there. Maybe if I smacked her hard enough, I could make her qualify to be shipped up to the loony bin or the funny farm. I started laughing in her face, mostly from my own thoughts. Her face started to turn this shade of red that made me laugh even harder because it makes her look like the tomato from VeggieTales in a blonde wig. Why are you laughing? I'm the manager's wife and I can fire you. Still laughing. I'm bent over trying to breathe properly with tears streaming down my face from laughing so hard. That makes me start snorting from breathing in and out at the same time. I know that's total BS. I wrote in the first post about my parents, right? Yes, my parents are the collective manager here. She has no idea. I eventually take a deep breath, clench my nails into my palms, and look this Karen straight in the eye. You'd fire your own daughter, Mom? I later told my mother about this, and she kind of found it insulting. I'd say that my mom is so much better looking to my father. Yeah. Anyway, Karen looked so dumbfounded by what I'd said that I actually had to turn my head towards the side completely so that she was out of my line of vision so I don't start my laughing fit again. She huffs angrily and walks away. I turn on the lights and think that's the end of it. Nope. The morning shift typically has to clean up breakfast, and since I was helping my dad, who at the time was suffering from something unknown in his legs that made it painful to walk, I was the one that was cleaning up breakfast. It was from 6 to 9, and it was about 15 minutes from 10. So I was just wiping down the counter now. Nothing was left from breakfast on the counter except for coffee for guests. I go into the back office and start washing dishes, which means that my dad has to keep his ear out for the door chime to go off, signaling that someone has come in. I'm in the middle of washing dishes when I hear yelling coming from the front. I'm greatly concerned for my dad and rush toward the office, grabbing my phone from the desk just in case I had to call 911. I didn't. Lo and behold, Karen had arrived. She was yelling at my dad about how there was no breakfast set out and how he was a crappy employee and how she knew the manager. Yeah, well, she did. She was talking to him after all. My dad kept trying to explain breakfast hours were over and they were under no obligation to keep it open for her, even pointing to the sign right behind his head that stated the hours too. Karen was not having it. She saw me as soon as I walked in. "And your employee cursed me last night when I was simply asking for directions." No, she didn't say cursed at me. I have to do the whole nails and palm trick again, not to start laughing at the memory, because it would no doubt get me in trouble. My dad turns and gives me this questioning look. I shake my head and shrug. "Ma'am, she's not an... I want her fired right now." Well, as we say in the industry, the customer is unfortunately always right. My dad turns to me, his face away from Karen, and gives me a grin before saying, "You heard the lady. You're fired." I give him a returning grin. "Okay, Dad, I'll go finish the dishes." Karen starts sputtering nonsense, but my dad turns to her and says, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Karen demands to see the manager. Now in the back office, a few steps away from the open door that separates the office from the front desk, I watch my dad stroll into the office, in quite a bit of pain, which made me mad, close the door, wait a minute before he walks back out and says, "I'm the manager here, and I'm asking you to leave the property." Karen screams, "Well, then I'm not paying." Okay, guess what? You already paid a check-in with cash that requires a $50 deposit. So therefore, you're not getting it back. My dad shrugs and I walk out from behind the desk a moment later to refill the coffee pot where Karen has moved to get some. That's right, she didn't leave. Karen started yelling at me now. It's an endless screaming and yelling and... I swear. "What the hell are you doing? You're fired." I smirk and tell her two things. One, I'm the manager's daughter and not actually an employee. Two, the coffee here is for paying guests, and since you clearly stated you're not paying, you can't have any. The coffee was out anyway, so she couldn't get any even if she tried. Karen, now understanding why I'd called her mom the previous night, storms off. I don't see her again for the rest of the weekend. Which two, Wild Karen 0. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.